Something that I use pretty often in the workflow of my media production in the studio and elsewhere is something called a contact sheet. A contact sheet is effectively just a collection of still images. In my cases, they oftentimes come from still frames grabbed from videos, or in many cases, they're still photos that were taken, and oftentimes behind the scenes to show a collection of images of work we did on location. But generally speaking, a contact sheet is, again, a collection of images presented as a single print, a single sheet. In fact, if you look at the Wikipedia definition, they have a couple of really nice examples of a traditional contact sheet, or what they call a contact print. Historically, in darkroom photography, you would take the negatives and place them directly on photographic paper in contact with the photographic paper, line them up underneath the enlarger and expose them with no enlargement whatsoever. So again, it's directly in contact between the negative and the photographic paper. This gave photographers a nice way to look at a roll of film, again in aggregate, decide which images, which stills were perhaps the best composed, which ones were most sharply in focus, make editing decisions from there. So that same principle still applies, and that's more or less how I use them today. Not so much for picking stills that are going to be used for presentation, but rather as a way to look at a collection of images, a collection of videos in aggregate, and kind of generate some discussion or make other decisions about how they might be used, or how production, some of our workflows are taking place. So let me show you real briefly what I'm talking about. This is a contact sheet made to share some behind-the-scenes imagery of a recent on-location production. No individual image is necessarily going to be used or selected, but showing them as a collection in aggregate was kind of useful, and a contact sheet was a great way to do that. In some cases, I might have examples of stuff that has been done in the studio, and I wanted to perhaps show other instructors examples of things that they could do in the studio as well. This was a wonderful class we produced a few years ago, and these co-instructors did a variety of very interesting and creative things, both in the studio and outside the studio. Grabbed a still frame from each of their videos, put them together, and presented them in a contact sheet in aggregate, just to help generate some discussion and ideas about how we could do similar things in the future. Let me see here. Sometimes you have a large collection of videos, and you just want to get a peek at them and see how they might go together, what kind of things are being done. For example, we have our One Button Studio on campus that is produced, I think maybe oftentimes about 2,500 videos a year come out of that studio. And to get a look and see how that One Button Studio is being used, it would take forever to play every one of those videos, or even to dip in and out of them manually. So Contact Sheet was a great tool to use to see how the One Button Studio is being used. The still images were grabbed from each video automatically using some Adobe Photoshop actions. That's a whole nother discussion, and we can have that some other time. But so these still images were grabbed from a period of time. I don't know, maybe this was a semester or a month or something, I can't remember. But this gave us the ability to visually drop into each one of these videos and get an idea how the One Button Studio is being used without having to play every single video, which would not be efficient or effective. So that was a great use of a contact sheet. Oddly enough, Wistia offers a very unique kind of a contact sheet tool. You can download videos from our Wistia video server in both the original video file that gets uploaded from the editing system. You can download different size compressed videos, and they also offer this very unique film strip view that you can download. And again, this is a very good example of effectively the contact sheet, the contact print, or what Wistia calls the film strip view of a video. So you can see all of these still frames grabbed throughout the video. I'm going to guess, I don't know, every 10 or 15 seconds, something like that, and presented in film strip view gives you the ability to view the video in aggregate without watching it. You can kind of get an idea what this video looked like in terms of how often there was a two-shot with both co-host and guest, how often it was just the guest, how often it was the host. And again, it's just an interesting tool. I don't have a lot of applications for that, the film strip view, but it is kind of neat that they offer that. So again, those are just some quick samples of what contact sheets are and how they might be used. Let's look about how one makes them, or at least how I make them. There are a variety of ways you can make contact sheets. Adobe Bridge is one example of taking a collection of images, and it offers a lot of other wonderful tools in terms of how you might sort and collect those images based on metadata, keywords, star ratings, that sort of thing, and then print them out as generally PDFs. It leans toward the printing a PDF format of contact sheets. Photoshop, on the other hand, let's have a look at Photoshop. Okay, so in using Photoshop, it's really quite simple to create contact sheets. In fact, the process is built in and automated. This, under File, Automate, is the contact sheet tool. This function has been built into Photoshop for years, and it oddly enough, it really hasn't been changed too much. They refine it a little bit, but generally speaking, it works pretty much the same way it's always worked. What I do is I take the images that I want, I put them into a single folder, and as we mentioned, like those still images from the One Button Studio, all of those still frames have been gathered, then it got dropped into a single folder. And then back in Photoshop, you just pick the folder that you want to draw the images from to create the contact sheet. You select the size of the contact sheet, and again, this is typically I'm sharing on screen images online, so I don't pick particularly huge image sizes. And then you pick the number of columns, you select the number of columns and the number of rows, and how you want those images placed. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a contact sheet from a series of YouTube videos, a particular channel. I'm interested in looking at how the art direction of this channel applies across several different videos. So I'm going to grab a still from each video, put them together in a contact sheet, and then have a look at that. So let's go to YouTube. All right, so I'm going to pick a couple images from this channel, and I could do a quick screen grab here, but I'm going to get a bunch of other nonsense and stuff that I'm not interested in. So a more elegant way to do this is to grab the link. I'm going to copy this link, and I'm going to go into VLC and play the YouTube video in VLC. And the reason I'm going to play it in VLC is there's a little bit more control over how I can grab stills, and it looks a little bit cleaner in the end. So back in VLC, I can open a video file, I can open a DVD, and I can also open a file that exists on the network. So I'm going to take that URL, that link that I copied from YouTube, paste it into VLC, and open it. And with all goes well, that should play the video. So I'm going to go to the image that I'm interested in, and then I could do a quick screen grab of this, but again, I'm going to get if I did that, I would get all this toolbar and stuff. I'm not interested in that. I just want a nice clean version of the still. So VLC has a nice built-in tool called Snapshot. Again, keeping in mind, we're trying to get still images from videos. We want a snapshot in this case. So I'm just going to take a snapshot. It's going to export that to, that still image got exported to my movies channel, and you can pick where it goes in the preferences of VLC. And this should be the snapshot that I just took. So I'm going to do that a handful of times and come up with a collection of stills, and I've already done that. Let's see here. I have a collection of stills from that channel, and here they are presented individually. And I want to make a contact sheet from these. So again, going back to Photoshop, I will go into Photoshop. There's one of those images just randomly. I'm going to go to the File, Automate, Contact Sheet. And back in the Contact Sheet tool, I pick the folder that I want to use, and it's already selected. So it's sitting on the desktop. It's that Color Studio photo, or folder rather. Those are the various snapshots there. I believe there's probably 6 of them. And I'm going to say open that one. And I've picked the size and how wide I want the finished video to be, and how, or the finished still to be, and how high it will be. And I'm going to just say OK. It's going to make 2 columns, 3 rows. Now that adds up to 6, I believe. So it churns through, creates these images for me, and that's what it looks like. And you sometimes have to experiment with how, based on the width and height of your individual images. In this case, it works out well because they're all the same height and width because they came from video grabs. But even so, you still want to figure out how well they're going to lay out, because if I was to make this with a different size rather than 1600 by 1400, it's going to fill in, and sometimes you'll end up with extra white space. The other thing I like to do is have it make each one of these is on a separate layer by itself. That's not the default, but I find that's useful because I like to embellish this a little bit more afterward. So one thing I'm going to do is turn off the background. I'm going to take these images and I'm going to merge all of them together as a single image. And before I merge them, I might want to move them around a little bit if I thought that the order would be better presented a different way, but this is fine for now. The reason I do this, I merge them all together, is I think it looks nice to have them outlined. Rather than just these images presented on a white background, it's nice to have them outlined, in my opinion. You could also throw a drop shadow or something on if you were inclined, but what I'm going to do is just select them all and have them outlined. You can see they're outlined individually, and under Edit, I'll say Stroke. And I'm going to do a 4-pixel stroke around the outside of each image, and I just think that looks a little bit nicer. Let's unselect that, turn our background back on, and there you have it. There is a nice, nice contact sheet. So there you have it. That's a quick overview of contact sheets, both how I use them, a little bit what they're originally designed for, and a quick technique on how they can be created in Photoshop. I hope you found this useful, and look forward to seeing some contact sheets of yours as well. Thanks. Bye.